Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Liz. Well, I came here as a graduate student to study under Margaret Clark, who was then starting the first PhD program in the country in medical anthropology. I don't know if some of you remember her here, but she was a medical student in Texas and decided she needed to take a year off from medical school because she needed to really understand what was going on with her patients in the Southwest, Hispanic patients, Native American patients, and other minorities, and she couldn't treat them effectively as a clinician until she understood some basic principles and theories about culture and socioeconomic context. So she came to Berkeley, UC Berkeley, for a year to study anthropology, and that was the end of her medical training. But what's happened since then, she started the medical anthropology program here, and there's now many across the country. But as a result of her initial groundbreaking work, looking at the impacts of culture and social determinants on clinical care, health, and disease, we now have here the MSTP program, where we have medical students who come for 2 years, then they can do a 5-year program in medical anthropology, then they go back to finish their medical degree, becoming full-fledged clinicians and anthropologists together, and I'm delighted to say that we train them in our program, and our critical mass is now going out into the world, writing books, giving lectures, publishing in the New England Journal, and doing wonderful things. So, turning to my own project, I want to say that medicine's ability to prolong life is now the most wonderful thing we can imagine about what medicine can do. But we live in an aging society, and along with all of those abilities of medicine and our desire for all of medicine's tools comes a quandary about where to draw the line. How much treatment is too much treatment? When should we stop, and who decides? And as you know, this problem isn't just a problem of research at UCSF. This problem has now become a national preoccupation, and I think some of you probably read these books and texts. You know about this. These are in op-ed pages all over the blog sphere. The man looking at you with a big smile on his face is Ezekiel Emanuel. You may have seen that article in The Atlantic, Why I Hope to Die at 75. He was 57 years old when he wrote that last year. Stay tuned. He says at age 75 he will no longer seek preventive or intervention care to prolong his life, but we'll see. But I think, you know, the controversy around this is now affecting hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of families in the United States as family members face the aging and chronic illnesses of their older family members. As a medical anthropologist for 25 years, I've been watching this quandary unfold in clinics, at bedsides, and at kitchen tables, and noticing how it cuts such a wide swath across the American public, all ethnic groups, all socioeconomic groups. Medicine can do so much, but in some instances, it goes too far, and we have become, as a public, very concerned about this. We are now very concerned about control over the timing of death. This is a new cultural preoccupation. Medicine has given us the tools where we have to be concerned about this now. So how did all this get started? What's going on here? When I started observing in clinics patients over age 70 going into specialty clinics looking for potential treatments for renal failure, kidney and liver transplants, advanced cancer treatments, and implantable cardiac devices, I learned, listening to those clinic conversations, that the talk mainly settled on the topics of evidence and expectations, risk, desire, the urge to do everything, and the urge to know when to not do something. Evidence-making has its start in the biomedical research engine, that multi-billion-dollar engine that UCSF is a proud part of. The thing that drives it is the clinical trials enterprise. When the website clinicaltrials.gov was started by the NIH in the year 2000, there were 4,000 clinical trials registered. Today, if you go on their homepage, there's more than 200,000 trials listed in all 50 states and in 90 countries. I think there's about 30,000 trials alone listed for breast cancer research that you can choose to participate in. So the clinical trials engine is churning out more evidence than was ever before available. And then what happens? Well, Medicare and the private insurance industries, of course, review that evidence, and we want them to. They decide what's reimbursable. More and more has become reimbursable because there's more evidence. As a result, once something is reimbursable, it becomes instantly standard of care. It's very hard to say no to standard of care medicine for doctors, for patients, and for family members. We're all in this together. In addition, once something has become standard of care, it also seems ethically necessary. That is what produces this quandary about where to draw the line. Evidence-making itself is complicated by three interrelated developments. The first thing is that evidence is produced now more and more by private industry. In 1980, 32% of medical research was funded by private industry, and at that point, it was mainly the pharmaceutical industry, 32%. Today, 65% of biomedical research is funded by private industry. That includes the pharmaceutical companies, device companies, and biotech. Now, this is all a great development on the one hand, but in an aging society, it becomes more problematic. The other thing, of course, to remember is that when private industry drives the research engine, which means the funding of research, the interpretation of evidence, you have to remember that private industry's main goal is, of course, increasing market share and their own bottom line, a different goal than the goals of the NIH. How does this play out in the clinic and at the bedside? I draw from the example of the ICD. This little tiny device, like a pacemaker, is now used for over 100,000 patients a year, most of whom are in later life. It's complex to turn it off. It's actually easy to turn it off, but it's complex in the sense that physicians don't talk about it and patients who have it wonder about it. The hard thing about the ICD, while it staves off death, it doesn't enable the kind of death that most everyone says they want, the silent heart attack in the middle of the night. It prevents that. So this is simply one example of a technology that was brought into use because of its extraordinary life-saving effects, but then has other effects as we move into an aging society. Thanks very much.